All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are exploring a radical new theoretical framework that literally redefines the very fabric of our universe. We're taking a huge leap, moving away from the old idea of the universe as just some static, empty void, and looking at it instead as a high-bandwidth kinetic circuit. And honestly, if this theory holds up, pretty much everything we thought we knew about gravity, mass, and dark energy is about to be turned completely upside down.
So we have to start with the ultimate physics mystery. When you look at the fundamental particles of the Standard Model, their masses are just wildly different and seemingly totally arbitrary. I mean, the top quark is a staggering 12 orders of magnitude heavier than the electron. To put that into perspective, that's kind of like comparing the weight of a single grain of sand to a massive, fully loaded cargo ship. It's a huge gap. But why? Well, the Standard Model doesn't actually have an answer for us.
In fact, to make the math work, the Standard Model requires 12 completely independent, totally unexplained parameters just to account for this massive gap. We essentially just have to measure them in a lab and plug the numbers in manually. And to a physicist, having 12 arbitrary dials to turn is a massive red flag. It strongly suggests that we are missing a much deeper, underlying structure to reality.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the ultimate physics mystery. Second, we'll meet the cosmic seam. Third, how particles get mass. Fourth, the cosmic chain fountain. Fifth, dark matter and energy. And finally, we'll wrap up with the unified kinetic circuit.
Starting right off with Part 1, the ultimate physics mystery and the breakdown of the Standard Model.
To really grasp the solution here, we first need to understand why our current closed system models of classical and quantum field theory are struggling so much with things like the hierarchy problem. The old view basically dictates that the vacuum is just an empty, static, Euclidean void. You can think of it like a flat, boring stage where things just happen to take place. But the new view? It argues that the vacuum is a kinetic circuit. It's a dynamic, mixed curvature manifold that is actively buzzing with momentum exchange right up to the absolute Planck force limit.
Which brings us to Part 2, meet the cosmic seam, the universal domain wall.
This is the structural core of this entire new theory. The universe isn't just one big, smooth expanse. It's actually partitioned by what is called the cosmic seam. In this framework, the Higgs field isn't some invisible soup of particles. It's a literal geometric boundary. On one side of this boundary, space has a spherical geometry, and on the exact opposite side, it's hyperbolic. And the universe is meticulously keeping track of absolutely everything crossing this wall, using a sort of topological ledger, which ensures that energy and momentum are always perfectly conserved.
Moving to Part 3, how particles get mass by crossing the seam. So you're probably wondering, how does a geometric boundary actually give particles their incredibly varied masses? Well, according to the research, mass isn't just a property, it's an action. Building on established physics concepts, like the Arcani-Hammett-Schultz mechanism, we see that a fermion is formed as a pair exactly at this seam, and it constantly oscillates, literally trading its left and right-handed components back and forth across the boundary. The tighter it is bound to that seam, the faster it crosses. So, mass is quite literally just this seam crossing rate.
And this fundamental action gives us the universal fermion mass formula. It's a brilliant way to think about it. Lighter generations, like our friend the electron, have a really large spatial variance. They spread out way further from the domain wall, so they cross it slowly, which results in a tiny mass. But heavy generations, like that top quark we mentioned earlier, they sit right on the boundary. They are tightly bound, crossing it incredibly rapidly, which results in all that massive weight.
What's amazing is that this framework takes those 12 arbitrary mass parameters that have frustrated physicists for literally decades and compresses them down into just 4 computable geometric parameters. It actually derives the exact hierarchy ratios mathematically instead of just shrugging at unexplainable gaps. And crucially, it predicts a universal seam circumference that perfectly aligns across leptons, up quarks, and down quarks. Suddenly, everything is linked.
Let's look at Part 4, the cosmic chain fountain and the mold effect.
Okay, we need a visual analogy to really see how this continuous momentum flow works without somehow breaking the laws of physics. The researchers use the mold effect. You might know this as that famous chain fountain phenomenon, where a beaded chain essentially pulls itself out of a jar in this huge leaping arc. Just like the chain transfers momentum via a boundary kick against the pile of beads, particles are trading momentum continuously with the vacuum's geometry exactly at the seam. It's a macroscopic isomorphism, basically a perfect physical parallel of quantum gravity happening right in front of us.
Next up, Part 5, dark matter and energy on the cosmic scale.
Having completely solved the tiny microscale of particle mass, the framework zooms way out to seamlessly explain the grandest, most elusive mysteries of the cosmos. By re-deriving the math for this mixed curvature space, we get a breathtaking translation. Gravity? That's simply the gradient of the Berry potential, a pull toward a higher density of seam crossings. Dark matter? That's the lateral force of Berry curvature, and dark energy is just a time-variant phase shift. Let's break those last two down a bit more.
Drilling down into dark matter for a second. In this framework, when a particle traverses the seam and flips its chirality from left to right, it has to shed angular momentum to conserve the whole system's balance. It essentially dumps this momentum directly into the background geometry, creating what they call a conserved wake. Now, we obviously can't see this wake with our telescopes, but we absolutely feel its gravitational pull. That geometric wake is exactly what we observe as dark matter. And what about dark energy? Well, because those spherical and hyperbolic domains we talked about have a slight asymmetry in their area, the universe itself carries a topological debt. Calculated via the Atiapodoti-Singer index theorem, the mathematical pressure required to constantly service this permanent geometric debt causes a time-variant phase shift. This constant, relentless expansion pressure, that is exactly what we experience as dark energy.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, the Unified Kinetic Circuit and Seam Conservation Laws.
This is the incredible point where the microscale of particle mass and the macroscale of cosmology perfectly, elegantly align. Every major physical phenomenon we've discussed today is strictly a mechanism for the universe to balance its topological ledger. Mass is just domain oscillation frequency. Gravity is continuous momentum trade. Dark matter is the curvature wake of particle spins. And dark energy is the pressure of area asymmetry. It is a completely, perfectly conserved, closed-loop system.
As the source material beautifully sums it up, this framework completely rewrites how we view reality. The universe isn't broken. Those weird mass gaps and missing parameters in the standard model, they aren't bugs in the code. They are the essential signatures of a higher dimensional, fully conserved circuit. The universe is operating exactly as a high-bandwidth geometric engine should.
Which leaves us with a truly mind-expanding thought to end on. If the fundamental building blocks of reality, mass, gravity, the dark universe, are really just crossing rates and wakes on a cosmic domain wall, what other incredible secrets are waiting to be decoded in the hidden geometry of the vacuum? Thank you so much for exploring the cosmic seam with me today and this explainer. Keep questioning the universe.